Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I will be playing the Wood Elves, led again by Durthu. He's definitely my favorite of the new lords, and I look forward to using him quite a bit. I've actually been playtesting a little bit with Orion, and I don't like him that much. I just feel like he's kind of awkward, and still, I think he's quite good. He's unbreakable and has some diversity in regards to being able to do pretty well in melee, and has some ranged utility as well. But still, I like Durthu a lot more, and especially the fact that he can bring Flock of Doom is quite nice. So anyways, let's go over my army composition real quick. And I am indeed playing against Bretonnia. So I know a few of you guys were asking for some games, and I thought this was a pretty good showcase here. So let me go ahead and pause it here. So Frontline of Eternal Guards with shields. So these guys are pretty good in the Bretonnian matchup. Obviously, the anti-large and armor piercing isn't as pertinent, but they're shielded, have incredibly high stats, and can hold the front line pretty well. And, if King Lewin or Paladins or other units like that, or, Grail Knights, anything like that comes in, these guys can usually hold their own. And they also have extremely high leadership, which I've mentioned in previous videos. If you guys go ahead and take a look, they're at 93 leadership, which is pretty substantial. In the secondary line, it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but I feel like the tree men are just great units. Even in a matchup where, men-at-arms with polearms on paper are just excellent against these guys, I found them to be so good and so tanky. I'm not sure exactly what the Forest Spirit, I know it mentions something about them not, taking reduced attacks from mundane attacks is, I believe, the exact wording, but I just feel like they're really, really sturdy and really tanky and can really kind of keep your front line together for quite some time. And also, they also tend to have a pretty high leadership as well. So big fan of those guys. Then, of course, I got Durthu with the Lore of the Wild, and all I brought was Flock of Doom, because my true caster essentially is going to be Branch Wraith, which I have in here somewhere. I'm trying to remember where I put it. Oh yeah, it's kind of blended in here with other tree folk, but the Branch Wraith is really nice in the front line. It causes fear, which is quite nice, but let's actually see, do the tree can? So the tree can do as well. So definitely going to be pretty useful against Bretonnia, which I believe the Beloved Son of Bretonnia was nerfed in the last patch. So hopefully that'll be a little more pertinent in this matchup, although I suppose that only applies to Terror as it is a psychology mechanic. So I have a Branch Wraith right here, and all I brought on the Branch Wraith was the heal, because I didn't want to spread my Winds of Magic too thin and experiment with those big clunky Vortex abilities. Essentially, I just wanted to get straight to business and have an AoE heal, as well as an AoE attack spell, or damage, which is Flock of Doom. Now, let's get on to my new favorite unit, and I just found these guys to be extremely good in so many matchups. So, in playing with the Wood Elves, I was trying, to use the Glade Archers, which are just the traditional cheap ones for around 500, and I was asking myself, I was like, I feel like I don't have an advantage versus Bretonnian peasants, versus Quarrelers, but I then looked at the Wood Elf roster and I asked myself what could give me an advantage, and these guys were the answer. So these Waywatchers, they have armor-piercing missiles, but more importantly, they have extremely far range. And I'm not sure if I'm able to show you here. So if you guys take a look at the Hawkish Precision, it adds plus 70 ability range, which is quite nice. So essentially, it also adds armor-piercing missile attacks, and it's active if no enemies are in the ability range. So the ability range is 70 meters. So at a great distance, if these guys far away, they actually get a nice little perk in regards to their armor-piercing attacks here, and they can hit pretty damn hard. These guys, they do have a stock ability, just very, very well-rounded. I like them a lot. And I feel like, in the Bretonnian matchup, they're really good at putting down King Lewin and Paladins and units like that. And, they are really expensive. I believe they're upwards of 1,000, but they have 27 missile strength. They hit really hard, are somewhat durable in melee as well, with 32 weapon strength and 32 melee defense. So I actually have two of those over here, and since they do have that stock ability, they're fairly safe away from my main army, and I can kind of develop their position as I please. So lastly, I do have a Waystalker. Waystalker's really good at, shooting at Lewin and Paladins and Damsels and units like that. Although he doesn't have, armor piercing, it still hits really hard. I mean, 419 weapon damage is pretty serious. So he's just great utility, and you guys will see he definitely does pretty well for himself this game. So as far as my opponent, he has the very traditional Bretonnia. He has King Lewin with the popping out eye, as you guys have seen probably in the new graphic there. He has two Paladins, it looks like, obviously, who can't carry potions anymore, so definitely very nice. And then the rest of his army is pretty standard. Men-at-arms with polearms across the front line, peasant bowmen in the middle, and then flanked by spears in the back. So it's a very traditional kind of peasant blob build. So it's going to be tough to crack, considering these guys are going to be good against my tree men, and will definitely hold the line against my Eternal Guards. So let's go ahead and get right into this game for you guys. It was definitely a fun one for me, so hope you guys enjoy it. So right now I use that the Waystalker. I use his kind of missile, his activated missile attack, and I get a nice little hit on King Lewin and a few of these other guys. Doesn't do a ton of damage, but you can see the let me go ahead and double check just so I get their names right for the rest of the game. The Waywatchers. So I have the Waywatchers and the Waystalker. So the Waywatchers get a little bit of HP damage, nothing substantial, but it just goes to show they barely made any contact there, and these guys were flying side to side, and they still did pretty good damage, across the board. So I'm advancing my front line here. And on that same note, I am developing like a little pocket over here, so you can see I'm sending my Waywatchers, I'm sending the Waystalker, and then I also detached a group of Eternal Guards to really protect them. Because obviously, if I just had these guys alone, King Lewin and the Goon Squad could come in and dumpster them pretty easily. So definitely did not want that business. And of course, Durthu, he's hiding behind this tree right here. That's actually pretty funny. He's literally got his like face against the tree, just hiding, which is pretty smart because against Bretonnian peasant fire, he's gonna get taken out pretty quickly. So over here, I do get a nice Flock of Doom, which is essential in beating this build. As you guys have seen in my Beastmen games, it's very, very strong. You can see it does substantial damage across the board. It's about 5 or 6 groups, so that's huge there. So over here, you can see my defensive pocket is forming. These guys are just kind of picking off the enemy lord. And, again, King Lewin and these other guys are kind of the deciding factor in this matchup. So I figured if I could suppress them, it would be a decent deal. But I was firing here, but then I noticed King Lewin was coming close, and he was diving after my my Waystalker here, who does take a little bit of a charge, but he actually didn't take much damage. So then he's immediately supported by the Eternal Guards here, who should do pretty well with their anti-large armor-piercing bonus. And now you see all this fire getting peppered on. So they're running, they're shooting, which is very, very cool. But once the Waystalker is able to get away, and you can see Durthu used his activated missile attack there, which is quite strong. Unfortunately, this Waystalker is taking him beating, but now the volleys are coming in, and look how much damage that does, guys. It's pretty serious. So another volley, hopefully we can see here in a second, and he does use another Flock of Doom over there in the front line as well. But those missile attacks crush Lewin. Just look at him; he's already down to like 40% HP, and Big Papa Durthu was able to chase him away, which is pretty nice because one good hit from Durthu could send him pretty close to being broken. So at this point, I decided to move my formation up and just kind of get them more engaged in the front battle because I felt relatively secure with having, essentially shut down Lewin. I mean, he's steady, he's below half-life, he's continuing to take missile attacks, and you can see that was the Waystalker's missile attack that's on a fairly long cooldown, and that did about, 8 to 10% HP damage on Lewin, which is really nice. And out of all that, I only took a little bit of damage on my Waystalker, and, one of my Eternal Guards took a bit of a beating, but, he's coming back in, but it's a risky play because these guys, they have pretty hard-hitting armor-piercing attacks. So I'm able to get some of my Eternal Guards back in here. They take a little bit of a charge, but nothing devastating. And now I do have this armor piercing. You can see these guys are getting in here. Lewin is wavering, and Big Papa Durthu, hopefully he can get a nice attack. Looks like he gets a one swing and sends Lewin broken off the battlefield, essentially. So very, very good situation for me. The Paladins here are also surrounded, but they should be able to get away. And you definitely don't want to mess with the Papa Tree here. He's doing a pretty good job slapping that Paladin around. So including some of his own guys, but let's go ahead and check out the front line, give you guys a nice little cinematic melee here in the front line. So you can see the Eternal Guards. I've always kind of compared these units. I feel like they're very similar, so it's going to definitely be a stalemate. But the trees in here are doing pretty good. They're actually stomping the yard, and if the tree, the tree kin were alone, it would be very bad in my opinion. But having them saturated with these troops actually makes them pretty durable and makes my front line, a lot more viable and just tanky all around. Let's go ahead and take a look at their combat stats. So they do have 55 weapon strength, so against like lightly armored units, they will hit really hard, despite the fact that in many ways these men-at-arms and full-arms are direct counters. So you can also see the Earthblood. It's hitting most of my troops and giving me a lot of sustainability in that front line. And I think in many ways that's what's been keeping my troops alive while I've kind of had to deal with this skirmishing in the back line. So right now you can see the Waystalkers or the Waywatchers are just kind of running and shooting, or it looks like they're walking and shooting, which is so freaking cool. Definitely really like these units, and guys, another matchup I had a lot of success with the Waywatchers in was against the Dwarves. They do really well against Quarrelers. They have heavy armor piercing, so they can kind of match the Quarrelers pretty well. So give it a test. Let me know what you guys think. But some of these Eternal Guards have come back. They're going to get in here and should be able to break the line of these remaining Bretonnian troops. And Durthu's in here, but I made a huge mistake. I actually kind of lost sight of his missile troops, and I didn't see this massive firing line back here. So these guys are just teeing off, and look how many of them there are. I was wishing I had enough Winds of Magic for a Flock of Doom right now. But Durthu is just taking a firing squad. So definitely, some tough love here, learning my lesson. He also lands his Paladins in here, and Durthu just has to flee. And, again, he's probably not going to get away. That's so much missile fire. And even though he has 100 armor, that is so much. He's literally just getting peppered. So very tough situation there. But, the Bretonnian player, most of his, troops are just, getting routed off in the front line. So the Treemen with that kind of perpetual value, the Flock of Doom, and the Lifeblood are just able to win that frontline engagement, which was huge. And unfortunately for me, King Lewin is coming back. So you can see Lewin coming from over the hill, and he's probably coming to try and finish off Durthu. But, he's, in many ways, this Waystalker, if I get a nice, shot or two with the Waystalker on Lewin, it's going to be a bad day for him, and he'll probably go down. You can see the Waystalker taking aim, and some of my my Waywatchers are also taking aim and doing pretty good damage. He is flying in kind of a strafing pattern, which is pretty smart when you're being shot at, but still, you can see his HP is rapidly tanking, going down several hundred notches. But unfortunately for me, Durthu did get gunned down there, so it was a very, very tough situation. But thankfully, you guys can see the power bar is pretty heavily in my favor at this point, even though he has so many troops. You know, I feel like I just really crushed his front line. Most of my tree can are in really, really good shape. So let's go ahead and look back here. You can see the trees are chasing them, and they're pretty quick, I think. What do they have? 38 speed, so they should be able to outrun some of these peasants, and they're going to get in there and smack it up pretty good. You can see they got their branches out. They're ready to party. Always a good time, guys. So we'll go back here, and you can see King Lewin is kind of flying around right now. He's up in the trees trying to figure things out, but you can see my Waystalker makes a nice little contact with his missile attack. He's at 79 HP right now. Looks like he paused for just a second. He was probably microing something else, but that's enough time for this Waystalker to get that key shot, and he was able to actually snipe him out of the sky. So very, very cool thematically to see kind of those elite missile troops actually do their job. And unfortunately, I'm out of ammo across the board now. You can see the Waywatchers are completely as they say, and they're going to get into melee, but against Bretonnian infantry, this is something that's really cool about them in this matchup. Like I mentioned, they have 32 weapon strength, 32 melee defense. You know, do they have a charge bonus? I wonder. Yeah, it's 7, so pretty negligible. But still, in melee, they're going to actually do really well against the Bretonnian infantry, believe it or not. It's like some awkward pathing right there. They're just bumping around, but he still does have the 2 paladins up here who do not have the potions, so definitely a big change to the meta. Definitely, you know, people are probably still getting used to it, but you can see the trees are kind of chasing these guys away, and it looks like most of these troops are pretty broken, and they probably won't come back. So I always like to keep like a group or two kind of going after them just to make sure they stay broken and just moving in this general direction. But he does land his paladins here to try and cheese out some, not cheese, but try and take out some of my units here. But I did have a pretty big contingent here in the forest. I had a branch right here. I'm able to use an Earth Blood. I keep calling it Life Blood, but it's actually an Earth Blood, and I'm able to use that and get a nice little surround here, and these guys are going to rout off pretty quickly as the tree can, even though they aren't going to pierce the armor, the 80 armor, they still have 55 weapon strength. And then I have all these anti-large armor piercing units here, as well as the Waywatchers, so that is probably all she wrote for our Bretonnian opponent. So yeah, very, very fun use of the Treekin there, using some of the Eternal Guards. And the Waywatcher, I mean, he only got 9 kills, but man, he did really, really good. He was solid in this matchup. One thing I might want to change is Durthu in this matchup, but the Flock of Doom is just so crucial. And I think, you know, if I were to do it over again, I would simply just keep him in the back line, have him defending my missile troops, and never advance him. There was no need to pull him in the front line where he was just going to get focused down. And he was doing a great job, as you guys can see. You know, he was slapping King Lewin around. He was keeping those paladins off my missile troops. So I think that would be the way to play it. But although these guys didn't rack up a lot of kills, the Waywatchers, they still did so good against the heroic units. So give it a try, guys. That would be my 2 cents. They're really good in the dwarf matchup because they don't do magic damage. So their armor piercing isn't going to be mitigated at all. And then also the Treekin, I think they're good in most matchups. Even if like it seems like they wouldn't be, just try bringing like 2 or 3. See how it goes. So anyways, really well played to my opponent, the Griffin. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder. And I hope you guys enjoyed that Wood Elf cast. Look how crazy his eye is before I go. Look at that. Like, what's going on with King Lewin's eye there? Looks a little crazed, but very funny stuff. But anyways, guys, take care and have an excellent night.